We've talked a lot about the 2023 Chevy Colorado and its sibling, the GMC Canyon, but one thing we haven't done yet on this channel is tow with it. This is Out Motorsports, the channel for cars as you are. My name is Jake, and I am here at my trailer lot with this Chevy Colorado, and we are finally going to put 7,000 pounds behind this truck. Let's talk briefly about what these can do with towing. We've already talked about the trucks in general. If you want to watch a full review of the Chevy Colorado, I will link to the actual review video in the description below, but let's talk all about what's powering this one in particular, what this one is, what it can tow, and then we'll hook my trailer up and get right to it. So taking a look at this Colorado, this is the Colorado Trail Boss. This is basically an off-road focused version of the work truck. If you look up front, you've got kind of the more plasticky fascia going on. You've got all-terrain tires here on an 18-inch wheel. These are a Goodyear Wrangler tire. But most importantly, this one has the advanced trailering package on it. So as with every truck, a trailer hitch is not really standard equipment. It's just going to be on most of them, but this one finally has it. So I drove a Canyon recently that didn't have one equipped, and I was kind of bummed. But in this case, you've got a regular 2-inch receiver. You've got your hooks here for your safety chains, and then you've got both 4-pin and 7-pin wiring right here on the bumper. Now, there are 3 engine options with the Chevy Colorado for 2023. For 2024, the one that I'm actually driving goes away, but it doesn't really matter because the remaining 2 are really the better options. So they're all a 2.7 liter turbo 4. In this case, this has the mid of the 3 options, but they call it like the Turbo Plus, but that one's going away. In any case, there is the Turbo Plus, and then there's the Turbo High Output. They're all 3 of them, 2.7 turbo 4-cylinder. Basically, you're going to have a base one on the work truck, and I think the Trail Boss at its most basic trim, and probably the LT, but then you've got the Turbo High Output, and that's going to be probably more of the volume seller. The difference between what I have here and the Turbo High Output is truly just a tune. So in this case, this one that you see here is going to make 310 horsepower and 391 pound-feet of torque. For 2024, this one's going to go away, and you just have that high output. It's going to be the same 310 horsepower, but it's 430 pound-feet. So that is kind of it. It's, you know, there's no need to have kind of the 3 options from my perspective. So this is going to be pretty good. Now, people are probably saying, oh, well, what about the reliability of the 2.7? It's a, you know, small engine, it's a big displacement 4, but it's still a 4-cylinder. And they say you can tow up to 7,700 pounds with this thing. So what GM did for 2022 is a few things. They strengthened the block casting itself, and they gave it a 30% stiffer crankshaft. So they're trying to keep it reliable. This is called the L3B, and you know, they know that this thing has to be a very strong option, so they really want to keep it really reliable. Now, this is paired to an 8-speed torque converter automatic, and you've got 4-wheel drive in this case. Most of these trucks are going to have 4-wheel drive on them. Now, I said 7,700 pounds of towing, which is indeed the case. That's the case for all of them, unless you have that base engine that's got less horsepower and torque. Otherwise, if you have the mid or high trim of engine options, you will be rated at 7,700 pounds. That is regardless of trim level of truck, regardless of tires, regardless of whatever. Now, the one other important thing to check before we hook up is the payload. So I'm going to open the door here, and that is always found right here on the door jamb sticker. And in this case, this is pretty good, actually. This says the combined weight of occupants and cargo must never exceed 1,507 pounds. That is actually really good. That is, to put this in context, that is higher than a lot of half-ton trucks that I have recently driven and towed with. That is really fantastic. So very impressive. Now, keep in mind, this is a Trail Boss. This is fairly basic as these things go. This does not have an upgraded sound system. This does not have a sunroof. This has power seats, but they don't adjust a bunch of ways. You know, they're cloth, not leather. There's things that are missing off of this versus something like a Z71 or even an LT with a bunch of options, where basically you're adding weight in options and you're removing weight from payloads. So just something to consider. Obviously, always try and check the door jamb sticker of the actual truck you want to buy if that is something that is a big concern. So that's that. Let's go ahead and get hooked up, and we'll talk more about this all in just a second.
Got a nice line right to the hitch. And as we get a little closer, hit that one.
All right, let's talk towing with the 2023 Chevy Colorado Trail Boss. So we're getting on the highway here. This is a lovely thing to do in the DC metro area with a trailer. even though it's a Sunday with minimal traffic. But we're going to talk about acceleration here first, because I'm going to have to do it. I'm doing like 25 miles an hour through the off-ramp, and I'm going to have to accelerate in just a second. So let's keep an eye on traffic and put our foot in it. Spin around. This is not fast, but it's also not slow. It's, you know, this is entirely adequate acceleration. I daily a Porsche Cayenne diesel, which is only 240 horsepower and, you know, 400 pound-feet of torque, and this feels very similar to that in that it is totally fine. You're just not going to win any races, but it's doing a fine job. And of course, now we've got a Silverado blocking me in, and this Echo doing nothing helpful. Holy God! Thank you for paying attention, dingus in the Silverado. You are a jerk. So now we're going 36 miles an hour on the highway. We're going to pull out and pass, because that's always fun. So let's try that. See, I love living in Northern Virginia and DC. All right. So yeah, this is doing just fine. Power and torque wise, it's making enough power and torque. You have to be willing to rev it, but it's not a problem. You just have to be okay with it. But it makes good power and torque throughout the revs. No one's letting me over, which is super fun. Let's try now. Great. So it makes good power and torque throughout the revs. It kind of falls off like 4,500, 5K with the trailer hooked up, but I'm okay with it. Now, the other thing that we should talk about here, we're going past a tractor trailer. That's always a moment where you might be worried about stability. I do have weight distribution with sway control set up. I've got a Blue Ox Track Pro, which is a great hitch that does both. And if you're towing more than 50% of the truck's rated weight, you really should have something like this set up. So I'll put a link in the description if you want one or need one. But just went by that truck, felt totally good. The wheelbase of this is long enough that I'm not really concerned about anything. And, you know, we're just cruising. I would do a long tow with this truck, and I think it would do just fine, to be totally honest. Now, the weight distribution helps make sure you're not pulling a ton of weight off the front axle. So what that means is that my steering is pretty good, pretty accurate, pretty direct. It's what you get for truck steering. It's, you know, it's a little slow. In my full review, this is like hard to hustle on a back road in that regard. But otherwise, you know, I thought that the truck was playful and nimble and confidence inspiring, and it feels the same with the trailer. It's obviously not playful, but very confidence inspiring, generally very good. The braking, obviously I'm not doing it right now, but built-in trailer brake controller is lovely to have. It's down by your left knee, and it stops just fine. The pedal feel feels really nice, both initially and as you work your way through the pedal travel. So that has again been a really big, nice thing to have. Now, Chevrolet also has this whole advanced trailering package, which gives you the brake controller. It also gives you some software that kind of helps you with like trailer light checks and mileage, you know, maintenance minder, and all different sorts of things on the touch screen. So when you get all set up for the first time and then subsequently tow your trailer again, it keeps track of how far you've gone. It tells you your average fuel economy. It tells you when you need to repack the bearings or, you know, check the brakes or whatever. So that is nice to have there. But in general, you know, this is totally fine. The one thing that I would say is, this being the Trail Boss, this has those all-terrain tires on it, whereas the Z71 and some of the LTs in particular will have highway tires. And the one thing to keep in mind with a tire choice is that an all-terrain is going to have those big tread blocks. That's great for off-roading, but not as good for directional stability when you've got a trailer hooked up in particular. So if you're hoping to have the best experience and really not be blown around by like crosswinds and big trucks and all that, you're going to want the highway tires, because you want to not have those big knobby blocks. You want just a more regular tread pattern, if you will. So that would be the only thing I would say, just be cautious of or mindful of. But you know, if you're going to be off-roading for the most part and also want to tow, this is doing fine with the tires that are on it. Other thing, just with transmission and tow haul mode, I'm sure you can hear it shifting a decent amount, this being the 8-speed. It's doing fine. It's keeping power where it needs to be. It's fairly smart for downshifts. You can downshift it yourself. You have to put it in L for low, and then there's a button on the shifter that will let you pick the gear you want. The one thing that I'm kind of not loving is that there's not a lot of automatic downshift logic when you are braking. That's something that I think Ford really has the win on right now. They have for a long time, and I would just love it. It would be a software thing, but if you're on the brakes, I would love a little more active downshifting for the sake of engine braking. But like I said, the brakes themselves are generally fine. So I think the big concern here, at least from me, was doing this with you know, admittedly a large 4-cylinder, but still a turbo 4. You know, they rate this for almost 8,000 pounds, and that's a lot of weight. And we're pulling close to 7, and I mean, it is doing just fine. You have to be willing to work it, but that is just like a naturally aspirated V8. You know, you still have to be willing to work it. I've towed with, you know, the old GM 5.3s and 6 liters, and you know, even the more modern GMs that have like the 5.3 and the 6.2, you still have to work them. They don't make power down low because they're not forced induction, whereas this at least is boosted. So you do have the turbo helping you out, and that, you know, is really, it's really just kind of fine. Okay, now we're coming up on a braking situation, so we're gonna slow down, and again, pedal feels good. This is just no big deal. Really not a problem, straight and true. Other thing worth mentioning, when you do the trailer setup with the software and the screen, you can either let the truck default to the maximum trailer length of 30 feet, or you can tell it how long your trailer is from nose to tail. This one is fully aluminum. It is 27 feet from hitch to tail lights, and I told it was 27 feet, and that's good because it will adjust your blind spot monitoring to compensate. So if you've got blind spot turned on, it will adjust and let you do trailer blind spot monitoring, which is a very, very nice thing, doubly so at night if you can't always see people coming up quite as easily or judge how far away they are. So that is, again, a nice touch. Now, the one thing I wish this truck had, this one is of course too low of a trim to have it, but they don't even offer this on the Colorado right now. I wish they would have Super Cruise on here, because Super Cruise is that GPS assisted hands-free driver assistance tech, and GM is smart enough, they've made it work with a trailer, and it is so phenomenal, and I love it. So that has been really, really cool, but it's not available on these trucks. So hopefully it will come to these trucks at one point, because it will be truly a nice little game changer. I've driven it on the Silverado and the Sierra, and that has been really cool. I've towed the same trailer over 1,000 miles with my hands in my lap. But in general, very, very impressed with how this truck is handling everything. I was most concerned about the engine versus everything else, because like I said, you've got enough wheelbase and chassis and all that to really handle a trailer like this, or, you know, a camper or whatnot. But just that engine, you know, they know it has to be stout. They're putting it in everything, at least everything smaller, and they know. So it's nice to feel like it's really got it. And yeah, I would totally take one of these and tow 5, 6, 7 hours with it. I think it would do just fine. You just have to not be afraid of working it a little bit, and then you're good to go. All right, we are all back at the trailer lot, ready to unhook this and head home. Thank you so much for coming along on this towing test of the 2023 Chevy Colorado Trail Boss. Please be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe right here on YouTube. Give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Out Motorsports. Head over to outmotorsports.com if you'd like to join a community of fellow LGBT automotive enthusiasts and motorsports competitors. We've got a whole group of people over there all across the US and in other parts of the world who would love to get to know you, be your new best friend, and find you at some of our events in person and online here throughout the rest of this year and into 2024. Until next time, please stay safe, be well, and see you for the next one.